Hello fashion people. To cut a corset top, you're going to be needing your basic pattern bodies and would need this bra cup. Now this bra cup is the half one. There's a full one, but this half one is suitable. On the basic pattern bodies, we would measure 1.5 inch from here, and as we measure, we'll go from shoulder to under bust while the cup is on the drafted pattern. So I'll go from shoulder to under bust. The under bust we'll be using for this project is 14 inches. Yours could be 13 and a half, 15, depending on whoever it is. So I'll mark 14 inches and take the cup down to 14 inches. I'll move it down, and that's where we're going to place it. That's the measurement we'll be working with. Now on this 1.5 inches that was marked, you will make sure the cup is directly on that line, and the cup will be a little slanted, not straight, so that to give you that sweetheart line. And then would mark round the cup like this. I'll go ahead to mark it. Now there's this sweetheart neckline, and that's the main reason why the cup is tilted a little bit and not kept straight. When it's slanted, it gives you that sweetheart neckline. So I'll just go ahead and brighten this line a little bit and then cut it off. Now when we cut round this line we have marked, we'll make sure not to be directly on the line, but we'll take the scissors a little bit upward above the line, so that when we sew, that will serve as our seam allowance, even though we are going to be sewing holding in very little as 0.5 inches. So we'll just go ahead and cut it, make a clean cut around it. Yeah, and that's it. So this is the front bodies we'll be working with, and this is how it looks like. There'll be 3 dots on these front bodies, one in the middle, one directly under the bust, each bust. So we'll use this front drafted pattern to cut the back. The back has already been drafted. The only reason why we are placing the front on the back is to make sure, or to determine the depth of the back. So place it on like this, and that extra by the side is for the zip allowance. I'm sure you know what that is. So place it on and smoothen it up. You could do a V cut, you could do a straight cut, but for the purpose of this lesson we'll be doing a straight cut behind, depending on the design you want. So I'll just go ahead and cut it off. Depending on the design you want, you could make it V in the back, or you could make it straight just like this one. Then I'll open up the place for the zip, dividing the back side in 2, so that in the middle will be a space for the zip. Now we are going to be cutting a covering for this bra cup. Since the bra cup is not straight, it is curved, we cannot just cut a straight fabric and place on it. All that side will have excess folds, and we don't want that for a corset cup top. So we'll go ahead and cut a fabric that suits it. On a piece of fabric like this, we'll bend it in two and make a perfect square fold with 4 different sides. At the end of cutting this, it would fit perfectly to suit the surface we're working with. So go ahead and mark 5 inches on that square from right where, as you can see it, and we'll go round. I'll take it from end to end just the way I'm going. So we'll mark 5 inches. If you're working with someone who has a smaller bust like 35, you would need to use 4 inches. 4 inches would do, but this is for a size 42 bust, so 5 inches is just perfect. So go ahead and mark this all round and cut it off. And don't forget, this bra cup are in different sizes depending on the size of the bust you're sewing or cutting for. You would go to your local fabric store and buy the size that suits the measurement you're working with. So on this circle, I'm going to mark out the middle part. You see, we've gotten a perfect circle from that measurement. We'll go ahead and mark a straight line on the circle, the middle of the circle. Then at the end of the line, we'll take 1 inch from the right and 1 inch from the left. We'll repeat this process up 1 inch from the right and 1 inch from the left. Then we'll connect this 1 inch we have marked down to the middle of the circle, just like that. Remember, we're not making a straight line, we're going to make it curved, a little bit curved, since our breast has that curve and it's not straight, just like that. So we'll do that on the right side and on the left side as well. You could cut it off or bend it to cut it. I'm going to be bending mine to cut so that it will give it an even cutting on both sides. So that's it right there. I cut the excess off. This is how it will look like after cutting. Then we'll put it together and join the sides. After joining it, you could choose to place it vertically on your cup or horizontally, but for the purpose of this lesson, we are going to use horizontal method. Either way, it will come out perfect. We're going to be joining that cup on these front bodies and we'll put 3 darts in front. After putting the darts, we'll use bias to cover the darts. You're going to see how that looks. The reason is so that it would give it that slim fitted shape when the model is putting it on. So there will be 3 darts that will be covered with bias. One of the darts will be directly under the bust here. That's 1 dart. And the second dart in the middle. And the third dart directly under the third bust. After joining that covering for the cup, we'll go ahead and use a gum to hold it down to the cup. We will use a gum to do that. So I'll just apply this gum to the cup. We'll start in the middle. When we're doing this, we have to be creative about it, because if you're not, it would look ugly on the outside if you don't do a neat job. So that's it. Let me give you a clearer view. So if you notice, I'm separating the fabric that was joined. I'm not making them overlap. I don't want to risk having a rough surface on the outside. So you just take your time and walk your fingers through on the surface. Press it down to the cup and do it gently too. And make sure you're not leaving any space. Remember, we didn't rub the gum all over the cup. So we'll just go ahead and open the side where the gum didn't reach and apply. Make sure it goes round. Apply sufficient amount, enough to hold the fabric down to the cup. Then go ahead and use your fingers to walk through the surface and smoothen it out, making sure there is no space or no fold as you take it round. Yes, just like that. We'll just go ahead and do the same thing on this other side where the gum did not reach. Apply sufficient amount around the cup. Place the fabric on it and use our fingers to walk it through. We'll repeat the same process on the second cup, and after this is done, see that excess fabric surrounding it, we'll go ahead to cut it off, and this is what it would look like after cutting it off. Then we'll attach the cup to the front bodies. But when you're attaching the cup to the front bodies, make sure you have fixed the dart and put the bias as well to cover the dart you have put on the front bodies. This is the cup after you've trimmed it out. Very beautiful already. Isn't that lovely? So after attaching the cup to the front bodies, this is what it will look like.